All right, guys, welcome back to the shack, and today we're going to be looking into another small machine. Now, as you know, since I've been doing this, I've done lots of different events to where I do on-site engraving. And so a small machine that's portable that you can take places is something that I'm familiar with the pros and cons of. This isn't just some video of, me in a studio making assumptions of what would happen with a laser. I'm drawing from real world experience from someone that operates on a budget, a pretty strict budget at times, to do laser engraving. So today we're going to be looking at a machine that I think some of you guys could be interested in for a couple of reasons, but the main reason is that it's affordable. So affordable that you very well could go out to one event and pay for the machine. It is feasible. So let's take a look at the machine and see what you think about it. All right, guys, so just to be clear, back in 2021, I started doing laser engraving stuff. I would go to local little fairs, craft fairs, flea markets, whatever you want to call it, the events that they have at churches, schools, all that. I would load all my stuff into the back of my pickup truck and my little trailer that I use for my lawnmower, and I would go and do those events. I started out using larger open frame machines that I built a, somewhat DIY enclosure for, and I'll try to bring you along with some pictures up here. So early on doing this, the one thing that I realized was that at these events, the majority of the things that I was engraving, that I was doing, didn't require the use of a 400 by 400 work area. There were occasionally times where people wanted wooden things cut out on site, and I would use the machine for that. But the majority of the things that I did, I needed a smaller machine. So fast forward a little while, I ended up getting a smaller galvo style machine, and I found that the galvo machines do have an advantage when it comes to the speed that they can engrave things at events, as well as the small size, portability, and in some cases, affordability of that machine. So that's where I think this machine is going to fit in. It's not I'm not going to sit here and say it's the cream of the crop of small event ready machines, but it's $600. It's $599 just for the machine to get you started. So I think that's where this machine is going to shine. Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. Wait. Stop. Hold it. If you hadn't subscribed, go do that for me, please. Back to the video. It is definitely a contender for a event-ready machine. And the machine that we're talking about is this guy. This is the Atomstack Atelier, whatever. Go ask Steve. Steve knows.
And so I had to look it up and look up the pronunciation. Well, Atelier comes from France in the late 17th century, and it was the name given to a private workshop or studio of a professional artist in the fine decorative arts.
Steve knows how to pronounce it. I'll drop a link to his video as well. But it is a fully enclosed, safe to operate around other people machine. Now, I know what you're thinking. It looks a lot like some of the other machines, and it acts a lot like some of the other machines. The one thing that I will say is, as far as weight, it's not all that heavy. And the way that they've gotten the weight down and the price down is they have kind of taken some of the technologies that other ones have and kind of moved those to the side. This one has a manual focus by way of this knob right here. You turn this knob, and instead of activating servos or whatever, it physically turns I'm guessing a screw inside there that raises and lowers the machine. It's effective, but it's not overly complicated. The machine doesn't have autofocus. You have to set it manually, but what it does have is a really good camera, considering. So along with the camera, I have also, because I always do this for events because it's just easier, and even if you're in your shop batching things out, is I like to make these little jigs. I've made these for countless other machines. I've basically taken the jig kit that I created for another machine and retooled it to fit this one. And so what that does is, even if you're just in your shop, let's say you're wanting to get into laser engraving, but you don't have a dedicated work area and you want to do small things like this. Well, this is something that you could physically pick up out of your closet, set it out on a folding table in your garage, on your porch, on the patio, whatever. You could do these things and then you could store it away. So that's another thing that I think this machine would be capable of and be good for. Now, using the jig along with the camera, what I would recommend would be you use the camera, get the initial lineup the way you want it, test everything, get it positioned exactly where you want, and then you save that file either in Atomstack Studio or in Lightburn. So with this machine, you're not necessarily locked into their software. I have tested the machine in Lightburn. To be honest though, with this machine and their software, I had no issues. Their software is really familiar if you've used any of the recent laser control softwares, and they've done a really good job. The camera works great in their software. So that's kind of why I kind of leaned into their software for most everything that I did with the testing in the beginning, because it was just so easy, because a lot of the stuff that I'm using are already made graphics. And so all I need is for it to output an image or output an SVG, and their software does that and does it well. So with this machine, for setting it up, there are a few options that you can get into. You've got this little floor plate that snaps in. This is one thing that I will give Atomstack that other companies did not really think about, is if you notice on this little bottom plate, there's these little pins right here kind of, and then there's a couple right here. The one thing that they did that a lot of other companies don't do is they've made this to where it kind of snaps in there and it has like a retention device to kind of hold this in, which is pretty handy when you're using it as a mobile machine, because as you're carrying it around, you don't have this plate falling out or bouncing around or whatever, because it does have some retention in there. That was a pretty good insight with the design of the machine. Another thing that I think they've done really well on is the conveyor or the bed slider that comes with this machine. It actually works really well in their software. I haven't tried it in Lightburn yet, but you can take these little screws here and put them in the base plate in certain positions, and you use that to basically lock in that conveyor into a certain position. Now, with the conveyor, I will say this, that is not something that I would recommend for events, and the reason being is that you have to leave the door open on this machine in order to use the conveyor. So if you're thinking about getting the bed slider or the conveyor to use at events, I don't recommend that, because you will not be able to protect other people's eyes with that thing running. With the conveyor on there, you're going to need glasses, and you're going to need to be in a contained environment. So with this machine also, let's say you're a cutting board manufacturer and you make cutting boards or you make charcuterie boards, and the only purpose that you would have for this machine, or for any laser for that matter, is you like to put your maker's mark on items. So imagine that you have a large board, let's say 2 foot by 2 foot, but you want to put a logo on the corner of it, whether it's for your customer, their business logo, or whether it's your maker's mark on the back, whatever the case may be. With this machine, and that's my little alien guy right there, you can take the floor plate, this little guy right here, out of the machine, and you can engrave through the bottom of the structure onto whatever surface it's sitting on. So that gives you unlimited size as far as the object, but of course you're going to be limited to the work area with the laser as far as the actual engrave goes. So with a 12-watt blue diode, if you're doing wood, cork, slate, anodized material, stuff like that, this is going to give you a lot of added value as far as the portability and being able to take it places. The only disadvantage I see with this machine over some of the competitors would be if you plan on using the IR a lot, because IR has its advantages for certain things, but if you're just getting into this and you're looking at these machines that are out there, this is half the cost of what you could get a dual beam machine for. And I think that goes a long way if it fits the niche that you're in, or if it fits the products that you sell. I think this is definitely something to consider. Is does that IR really mean that much to you? And if it doesn't, then this may be a more affordable alternative, because I can honestly say the events that I've been to, the booths that I've set up, even some of my early ones that I did, the money that I yielded from that event, even in the early days, a couple of events would have reimbursed me for my expense for this machine. Now, if you're, if you need that money for other things, then that might not be an option. But if you're in this as a side hustle, a hobby, whatever the case may be, then that's not terrible, because $600 plus your taxes and stuff like that is not a terrible amount of money to spend on something like this if you have events or if you have a space to use it. And like I said, it will do some light cutting as well, guys, but I don't recommend doing it a lot. If you need to do a little bit of cutting for, like, real thin material for earrings, stuff like that, okay, you can do those. But not having an air assist and having a galvanometer that cuts basically in the shape of a cone, it's just not good for constructive devices, like things that you're going to put together, like making boxes or making puzzles and stuff like that. You're going to have some issues with kerf and the way the angle is on the edges and stuff like that. But this machine for engraving, like I said, I've got all these different little keychains and stuff like that I've made. And I'll try to show you a picture of all of the things that I got over there. But I've made this little jig kit to make this a little easier and to give me a chance to test it on actually batching out some products and doing some things around the shop. Because I haven't had an event in the past couple of weeks to go to, but I do know what is entailed as far as being able to change that file really quick, being able to set up from one, to go from doing this keychain to doing this keychain with minimal, setup time, being able to swap them out really fast. That's what counts when you're in an event. You don't want to take a lot of time between jobs, because I know a lot of machines, they boast that, oh, you can do this in 20 seconds, you can do this in 10 seconds. And that's great, but if it takes you 2 minutes to set that job up, does saving 5 seconds really matter? So job setup time to me is more critical than the machine speed, because even if the machine takes 5 or 10 seconds longer, I can be prepping my next job and getting it ready while it runs, as opposed to if I'm busy setting up the job and trying to get everything set up, I'm busy. I can't be doing anything else. But if I'm waiting on the machine for an extra 5 seconds to do an engrave, that's not the end of the world. So to me, I think companies should concentrate more on ease of setup and ease of, swapping from project to project, rather than just brute speed and brute power. Now, in a perfect world, if you can do both, you're on to something. All right, guys. So this machine, after I'd say 2 weeks of testing, running it through some trials, doing some swaps here and there, you saw some of the clips of the video and stuff. I will say that this is definitely a doable machine for events. For the price, I would consider it an effective purchase if this is what you're going to be using it for. And if you're just a hobbyist getting into it and you just want something, like I said, that you can throw in a closet or stick over in the corner out of your way, they do offer most all of the different attachments as far as the bed slinger. They've got a roller, they've got a chuck rotary, they've got the dust and smoke filter box, which I didn't get that or the rotaries. All I got with this machine was I got this little guy and the bed slinger, which those two have worked really well for me. The other devices are similar to the ones that they've used for other machines, so I would expect them to be, similar in quality, build, and ease of operation as what we got here. So I can't speak to them for sure, but my reputation and my knowledge of Atomstack, they should work really well. But we're going to wrap it up with that today, guys. I'm going to break down my little imitation event booth that I have constructed here in the shop, and I'll show you guys what we got going on a little bit better angle from over here. So yeah, for about the past 2 days, I have been sitting here pretending to be at an event and turning out different products. It's done a good job. All right, guys, and again, if you haven't already, please go down, hit those buttons, subscribe, like, follow, share, all that good stuff. I'm going to have more content coming. I'm now full-time out here in the shop. This is all I do. Well, it's not all I do, but this is my main job now. And so I appreciate the support. I've also got links for everything. So if you're needing to purchase something, go check out my website, theclackshack.com/shop, and check out those links and just, help a brother out. Until next time, be safe and have a good day.